Welcome everybody to another shocking episode of Lockdown 23 and 1. Today, unfortunately, we're going to be speaking about another inmate's death, but this one is just unreal. The way that he went out is truly terrifying. Not to mention it took place inside of a private prison. Believe it or not, there's two types, I guess there's multiple types, but you got the state-owned prisons and you got the private prisons. Of course, you got federal prisons as well, but that's not an equation today. We're going to break down exactly what a private prison is and what the state has to do with it. So let's jump right into it. If you enjoyed this type of content, all things lockup and crime related, then this is where you want to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave, and check out my playlist with many more videos for you to start watching today. The title of this article is Lawton Private Prison Staff Members Lose Job in the Wake of an Inmate's Death. Lawton Correctional and Rehabilitation Facility staff found inmate Raymond Bailey dead on October 26, prompting questions of oversight and security at the state's last remaining private prison. Last remaining, I wonder why that is. We're going to get there in a second, but first let's speak about this inmate's death and how it was brought to the light. It says Oklahoma prisoner advocate Emily Shelton woke up to her phone buzzing around 7 a.m. on October 26th. Using state-issued tablets, prisoners told Miss Shelton that a man in their unit had been beaten to death overnight with no staff intervention whatsoever. Let's break down what we already read so far, right? How do inmates have Emily Shelton's number on speed dial? If I were to guess, she's probably been in contact with these individuals before the incident even happened, right? How else would they know exactly how to reach her? Either way, I'm glad that they did, and I'm glad that there are people, prisoner advocates like Miss Emily Shelton out there working for us, or for inmates. I gotta keep telling myself I ain't one no more. After the call to Miss Shelton, word spread on social media that morning and concerned family members began calling the facility, urging them to investigate. And that's typical. We've covered many stories with families doing the same exact thing. And what happens? Prison staff, whatever, tells them that they're going to investigate it. It'll be taken care of. And it usually does sooner or later, but it's a little too late by the time they get there, right? So that's what we're going to be discussing mostly today, especially with how this inmate died. Is just no excuse for it. They're going to say that it was short-staffed, but trust me, it ain't short-staffed. It's just these staff members ain't doing their damn job. Simple as that. There's no way that something like this could go unnoticed. Now at approximately 10:20 a.m., several hours after inmates started messaging Shelton, prison personnel found Raymond Bailey dead at the bottom of a trash can, buried under empty milk boxes. Let me say that one more time. They found this guy in the trash can. Just imagine if they never found him. They would have taken out the trash. Probably nobody ever noticed. It says prison personnel found Raymond Bailey dead at the bottom of a trash can covered with empty milk cartons. A state medical examiner report indicates that a group of prisoners hogtied and gagged Bailey and proceeded to stab and beat him to death. The medical examiner, who found no evidence of intervention to save Bailey's life, ruled the death a homicide. Man, oh man, they hogtied him. Gagged him so he couldn't scream or make noises, probably because it's nighttime. Didn't want to get the attention of the COs. Stabbed and beat him to death. Stuffed him in a trash can. Unreal. And I don't know if I mentioned this already or not. I apologize if I didn't, but this private prison's coming from Oklahoma. Wait, yeah, I did. It's their last private prison, and it's probably for good reason. I've heard many horror stories, as well as good stories. I've heard some people saying that private prisons allow you to get some better commissary and sometimes a PlayStation. And other times I hear that, private prisons, you're going to get gutted. So I don't know what to think about these puppies. I think I'll just stick with the state. And the state has a lot to play with these prisons. I'm going to break it down here in 1 second. But now Miss Shelton, the inmate advocate that they messaged, says, a routine overnight cell check would have revealed that Bailey was missing from his cell and prompted an investigation. Improved oversight and surveillance could have prompted officials to respond and intervene in the assault. Very true. Cameras are very important when it comes to, stopping a certain situation that you can't see. Someone's typically supposed to be in that booth watching all these cameras at all times, making sure nothing jumps off. But second of all, Shelton said a routine overnight cell check would have revealed that Bailey was missing from his cell. They must not have walked around that cell block at all. Not once. When I was in prison, look, I'm not going to lie, even in the worst prisons, they did their rounds. Maybe not every 30 minutes, but they came around at least once an hour. Maybe a little longer sometimes. I wasn't paying attention while I'm sleeping, but still. For them not to notice someone in their cell all night long, That has nothing to do with the amount of staff that you have. That has everything to do with what the your staff is doing. Nothing. The only thing these guards know how to do is lock the front and side doors. That's it. You know, if you're to ask me. Now, the article continues with Shelton saying, during the nighttime, when the warden isn't there, things aren't being done properly. There's no excuse why they did not find that body until 10:30 in the morning. Keep in mind, there's morning count. They can't be doing count. 5, 6 in the morning, that's when they usually typically do it, you know, right before breakfast, or some places do it right after breakfast. Lower level securities, if I remember correctly. But either way, they got a morning count. That means they counted, said everything was good, but technically that guy's in the trash can dead. Count clear, release the child. Everything's good. How does that happen, man? Come on. Don't give me that crap short staff, man. Article continues with the Department of Correction requires facilities conduct a minimum of 5 inmate counts throughout the day, including at least 1 overnight count. She said prisoners are required to raise their hand or otherwise indicate that they are conscious during the count. Keep in mind, after they count, they have to like send it somewhere, and all the prisons have to clear their count check before we can be released from little count lockdown. At least that's from what I heard. Like in Virginia, all the prisons do their count, then they report it to the main DOC in the capital, which is Richmond. Don't quote me on that though, I could be wrong. I'm just going off of a hazy memory. Now, prison spokesperson Thompson confirmed 3 prison staff members were terminated as part of an ongoing internal investigation on the murder of Mr. Bailey. Look, if they got fired, then chances are the investigation is starting to show a little bit of darkness to it. Usually correctional officers, they just resign, you know, and they'll hire someone new and keep it moving. But if they fired him, if you're to ask me, by the end of this investigation, they might get some charges pressed on him. Just my 2 cents from what I'm reading. Now, Bobby Cleveland, a former state lawmaker and executive director of Oklahoma Corrections Professional, a group that advocates for state prison employees, said that persistent understaffing raises the likelihood of violence behind bars. He said employees are sometimes expected to monitor more than 200 prisoners at a time. So this is an advocate for the prison employees. And once again, he's just throwing around the same old marble, you know. Low staff means more violence. How about your staff ain't doing their job, man? I hate to say it again, but that's what the case is here. Department of Corrections budget documents show that the agency employed 1,301 state correctional officers as of December 31st, down from the 1,500 in March 2021. Okay, it's a little drop, but nothing too major if you're to ask me. Look, coming from an ex-con, man, I would never do this job. I would never be a correctional officer, but if I was one, I promise you that I can make my rounds in a whole prison in less than 2 hours. By my self, guaranteed. Maybe less than an hour. Now, this part I don't really understand. It says declines in the Oklahoma prison population over the past 5 years has prompted state officials to vacate or take over multiple private prisons. Why would the state take over these private prisons if the prison population is in decline, right? If anything, you would shut down the private prisons and keep the state ones ran. Unless maybe some of those state ones are really busted and ran down. They'd rather just take the private prison back, or newer, or whatever, you know. I don't know, but it says the Department of Corrections took control of a 1,600-bed Allen Gamble Correctional Center, previously known as Davis Correctional Facility, from Core Civic on October 1st. It says that Oklahoma's contract with the GEO Group to house state prisoners at the Lawton prison runs through July 1st. The agreement gives the state the authority to purchase the facility and take over operations with at least 100 days notice. So that breaks it down for y'all right there, you know. When prisons, I guess, from what I know, prisons getting overpopulated, they end up, you know, making these private prisons so they can take up the excess amount of inmates. But really, the state has to say so in all these, right? So if there's any kind of issues with these private prisons, the state has an opportunity, like I already read, to buy it back and take it over and become a state facility again. Chances are they probably change the name and all that good stuff, but it's a tricky game that I still, to this day, don't really understand when it comes down to the whole private prison sector. But Lawton Correctional is the last private prison in Oklahoma, so I wouldn't be surprised if the state sooner or later takes it over or just completely shuts it down altogether. Either way, a lot of violence has been coming from it, and I haven't went into detail about the other situations. I really want y'all to focus on how extreme this situation is, right? And a lot of these situations I've been bringing to you recently. These guys are dying in a very, very treacherous way, and they're not even noticing it for hours, sometimes days. And that only tells me one thing: that prison is wide open. Anything can happen. Who knows how many other things is going unnoticed? If they can't even notice that a body's gone, just imagine how many people's cheeks is getting taken. Extortion and all that stuff, if I were to guess, is cranked up to the max. But that's a wrap, and to be completely honest, I couldn't find any photos on any of these individuals. Very mysterious. This happened by a group of individuals, so you're not going to be able to see all the people that took his life probably until the investigation's over. Then they might place it in some kind of publication, article or something, and I give you an update. But as of right now, the only picture that I've seen is of the victim, and that's on the Oklahoma inmate website, but there's no picture there. Just a blank picture with like a question mark on or whatever, he's gone. But I'm going to keep a close eye on this one as well as many others, and if there's any updates on them, I'll be sure to bring them y'all's way. Until the next time, though, go share some of these treacherous videos to some of your friends that might be going down the wrong path. It might persuade them to change their ways. I know if I watched them when I was younger, it definitely probably would have. Until the next time, though, as always, y'all be easy, be safe, and stay free.